What's up, guys? It's Rick Gann, and today we're talking about how to get instant confidence when talking to motivated sellers. So today's going to be a little bit instructional, and then I would like to have some people hop on here. I know everybody's got a lot going on today, right before the holidays, but we always keep it going. So what I'm going to do is put in the link. Well, I'll do that in a minute. So if you guys are watching, let us know where you're watching from. Let us know about your market. And listen, nobody knows about you unless you talk about it. So today I'm talking all about motivated sellers. And you have to understand the foundation of wholesaling. I'm talking about wholesaling is connecting with motivated sellers. That's it. Now, I'm the first to admit technology has changed how we do a lot of this. And I get it. But you have to always understand the fundamentals of wholesaling. Wholesaling will always be about communicating and connecting with motivated sellers. The challenge is, how do we find those motivated sellers? You have to learn how to do marketing. So if you're new to wholesaling, or you're lost in wholesaling, or you're stuck in a course and you're not making progress, do me a favor. Just jump over to freewholesaling.com and learn the fundamentals of wholesaling. There's absolutely no charge. Teach you how to get your first deal, teach you how to get your first 100,000. We've taught hundreds of thousands of people how to do it. Most people try to complicate this business, but today we're talking all about the motivated sellers. Now, notice, I'm not going to teach you techniques on not talking to motivated sellers, because I'll be the first to admit it doesn't work. So there's always, like, people always trying to define, hey, what is a motivated seller? A motivated seller is simply someone who needs to sell their house. A non-motivated seller is somebody who wants to sell their house. Where do I go to find people who want to sell their house? They're everywhere. Like, everyone wants to do it. The problem is you need to find people who need to sell their house. Now, if you're going to use pay-per-click, pay-per-lead, that's fine. That's basically wholesaling, skipping the marketing part and just paying your way forward. If you have the funds for it, you have the skill set, absolutely go for it. But most people, especially on this channel, are starting out in wholesaling. And the reality, if you do an expensive campaign, you don't have the experience, it's going to be tough. The other thing you have to understand is most of these paid type of leads, you have no idea if they're even motivated. In fact, I'm here to tell you that it's mostly transactional. And I don't teach transactional. Go to MLS, go visit a realtor. I watch people calling on all these types of leads, and I'm noticing the conversion rates are getting really low and the costs are getting really high. And it's just very tough if you're a newbie starting out in that situation. So understand those types of leads are completely different. In fact, I'm here to tell you paper leads are, I don't do paper leads, so I can't give you my opinion on them, but from the dozen people I work with that do them, they're all complaining about the low profit margins on them and the much lower conversion. 10% seems to be the target on it. So understanding what we're going to do is talk about is you going out doing your marketing, you pulling your government list, you doing driving for dollars, you actually taking action and creating the leads yourself. That is the number one skill set as a wholesaler. If you skip it, that means you're going to be controlled by others that have to produce the leads for you. And if that outlet changes, they outlaw it, or you have to go through a real estate agent, you will never be able to connect with those types of sellers again. So always learn the foundation of wholesaling. It's the most important skill set. What do I mean by that? It's always going to be about marketing. If you then get the skill set, you make some money, and you want to add like a paid lead source, I'm fine with it. And guys, nobody ever wants to talk about direct mail anymore. It is phenomenal. It works. It's legal. It's scalable, and it's predictable. I think direct mail is so much better than a pay per lead or a pay per click. Some markets, those work better than others, but those require very large budgets. And honestly, you have to do massive amount of numbers to make the numbers work. So let's talk about when we go out and we find leads and we connect directly with the seller. This has always been my highest skill set. And I will die on this hill because I know it works 100%. I've talked to so many sellers, And I do JVs with all you guys, and we connect, we help renegotiate the contracts. And I'm here to tell you, let's follow the path to connect with motivated sellers and build your confidence. So let's jump on it. So first of all, we have to understand, we already know what the motivated seller looks like. So the first course of action is always seek motivation. Why? Because if you're not looking for motivation, what are you doing? Anybody can buy a property. Wholesalers market to motivated sellers. They connect with motivated sellers. They write a contract, and then they dispo their contract. Anything in there that you miss, is it really wholesaling? It more falls into real estate investing. Can you get lucky and buy and have very little conversation with people? You can. I have, but they're extremely far and few between. And so don't ever think it's that simple. Now, we have to seek the motivation first. Here's how motivation works. It's very simple. There's various levels of motivation. They can be financial, they can be personal, but there's two types that I segregate in them. And we always mark our leads in our database accordingly. Number one, you always hear about the motivated seller. Rick, what's the motivated seller? This is where you focus on the individual's issues. Remember, real estate is nothing more than a symptom of people's problems, period. So understanding that I've seen a motivated seller, maybe somebody passed away in the family. You guys know I love to do probates. I love to help people out in probates, but the house is actually in perfect shape. They just said, Rick, I need to sell it. I live on the other side of the country. Can you help me with this process? That would be a motivated seller. Another motivated seller clause would be foreclosure, tax delinquency. They usually wind up being financial. It could be a loss of life. These terrible things that happen could be a loss of job, could be a divorce, could be anything. That is the motivated seller. Now, I'm here to tell you, even though you get somebody off of one of these particular lists, tax delinquencies, foreclosures, probates, a lot of times they're not going to tell you they're motivated right off the bat. So this is why you have to have conversations with people. Nobody throws their problems out on the first shot, including you and me. The reality is we all have issues. The question is, how do you get those issues to come abroad? So number one, the motivated seller. It is powerful. The problem is most people don't admit it. Now, I do have deals where people admit it right off the bat, and it's really easy to work with those type of people. And my rule is, if you make my job easier, seeking out the motivation through the qualifying, I make the process as simple as possible. Not everyone plays by those rules. Don't even bring in a realtor in there because they very rarely play by those rules. The next one is going to be what we call a motivated property. And this is predominantly what you're going to find when you seek out the government list. What do I mean by this? The property's run down. There's a hole in the roof. The property's just ugly. The grass is tall. I mean, the property, no one's put a dime in the property in 25 years. That's a motivated property. This is the predominant one you're going to see. Now, why do I identify two? Number one, I like simplicity in wholesaling. So if you have a motivated seller or a motivated property, your job is to keep following up with them, period, until they basically tell you, don't call me anymore, Rick, I'm going to hang up on you. And even that's debatable if we do that. But that is where you're going to qualify. They're either the seller or the property. Now, in a perfect world, and I've had this happen, I've been doing this a long time, you have a motivated property and you have a motivated seller. Honestly, those are the easiest deals to close. They really don't require any work than other being a human being. The reality is they're rare. I'm the first to admit it. Maybe I was better at finding them when I was younger, but in today's age, you're usually going to get one or the other. Now, in my experience, you predominantly get the motivated property. The property's run down, but the seller can be a bit delusional on what they need to sell it for. And you're going to have to make a choice on how you talk to these people. Now, keep this in mind, guys. Keep this in mind. Wholesalers will never win on price alone. If it's purely about price, I know right off the bat, I don't belong there. I'm not going to win, and I'm most likely wasting my time. So if it's price, 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 and that's all they care about, they belong with real estate agents. Let somebody bid the property up, but he or she that bids the highest is not going to get a great deal. In fact, it's not even going to be close to a wholesale deal, and that's it. So many people mix up like what me and Zach do. We just focus on motivated sellers in wholesaling, and we have to heavily, heavily focus on marketing. Would it be great if somebody just handed me the leads on a piece of paper? Yeah. But the reality is, you have no idea where they came from. You have no idea what the motivation is. All you know is somebody wants to sell their house. Now, what percentage of pay per click and pay per lead people need to sell their house? I don't know what that number is. And I don't know if you'll ever get an honest evaluation, because here's the secret: you're not in control of it. So, what you're not in control of, you're stuck. Let me give you an example. I'm just going to go outside of real estate so you understand. Investing is investing. We all know about real estate investing. We know wholesaling is a niche. Let me get this off screen. Wholesaling is a niche in real estate investing. You have creative financing, you have all sorts of things. And you know what? I believe wholesaling is the foundation to lead to other avenues in real estate. You don't believe me? Just take the people that are very good at what they do, and they predominantly have a wholesaling background. Now, knowing that, you feel like you can control the situation, meaning you can stack the odds to the outcome you want. That's what all investors do. Do they say it? I don't know. I'm just telling you how it is. Give me an example. I love to buy stocks. Trust me, I love it. SEPs, 401ks, Roth IRAs, everything. Here's the reality is I buy the stock. I have information. Sometimes it's good. Sometimes it's bad. Sometimes I make really bad decisions with it like anybody else. But like once I buy it, I have zero control where that stock price goes. Honestly, my only control is the day I buy it. That's the part I hate about stocks. Now, what I do like about stocks is they don't talk back to me. I click a button, I can sell them quickly, and they're highly liquidable. Real estate's kind of the opposite. You know the values, you know where you can go with it, and there's things that you can do to tilt the odds in your favor. It is not liquid, and real estate does talk back to you with what we call people. That's what we're talking about today. So if we understand that, you understand the value of how we do wholesaling. So now we talked about I'm going to keep moving here because I go on tangents with my ADHD. I fully admit it. So, and remember, if you have ADHD, it is a superpower if you use it for the right reasons. If you obsess about things that aren't going to get you anywhere, then it's going to be the opposite. So you can drop a note. I'm happy to help anybody out with it. So once we understand that the property or the seller is going to be motivated, or occasionally both, which is great, understand this: we comp after motivation. You can sit there and comp all day long. Just go get your real estate license. I'm not saying comping's not important. It is vitally important. But here's the reality. If I get 100 leads, the reality is 3 to 7 on average are the ones worth really engaging. So you guys have this tendency to want to know the outcome of everything that happens to you. So you want to know the exact value before you talk to the lead. Well, if you run 100 properties and say you spent 10 minutes on each one of them, that's going to be 1,000 minutes. And once that come to 1,000 minutes, I'm not that quick with math. I do need a calculator for that. So if we did 100 properties at 10 minutes each, you're going to give up roughly 17 hours. 17 hours. And I'm telling you, you're not going to get anywhere with it. You're better off practicing on how to talk and converse with people than spend 17 hours doing that. The reality is 30 to maybe to 40 minutes if you're going to deep dive on it. So I'm going to go through my leads. I'm going to find the ones that have motivation, either the property or the seller. And then I'm going to decide to either set an appointment. Some of you do it virtual, which I think is incredibly awesome. More challenges with it. I'm the first to admit you have to be really good with your ears, or you're going to go in person. Now, I first to tell you, if you go in person belly to belly, you will do a lot better in wholesaling. Why? Because it's just easier to communicate to people. It's the difference of listening to Rick on a podcast versus watching Rick on a video. You can tell when I get excited, when I get frustrated, angry, the same thing's going to happen with motivated sellers. They just give you more visual clues. And if you know that, you can use it to your advantage. And when I say advantage, it's about getting information. And we'll talk about that. So we comp after motivations. Everybody understand why. Put in the comments if you got any problems with it. We'll talk about it because it's so important. It's so important. I'm watching you guys post in here, and I'm going to try to get through this so we can do some one-on-ones. I want to help some people out with it. So we're going to comp after motivations. Now, I'm going to give a disclosure on this part. You ready? The technique I'm teaching is for you going out and getting your own leads. I do not teach bought leads for you because I have no idea where they're coming from. I have no idea what their motivation is. I have no idea what the cost is. And I have no idea how much time and energy it's going to take and if you're actually going to get a good deal. You know how you fix that? You go out and get your own leads. Oh, I'm too big and important for that. Listen, if you're starting out wholesaling, everybody starts somewhere. Once again, don't take my word for it. I've just been around for 22 years. Go talk to people that you love, indifferent about whatever in wholesaling, and ask them in their first year, how did they get their leads? Predominantly, I already tell you, is they figured out how to get them their own. And that is a skill set that will teach you about motivation, how to talk to people, and most importantly, how to convert your conversations to contracts. Once you master that skill, if you want to go and add a level to it, be my guest. Not a bad decision, but understanding they are different types of motivations when you deal with someone that fills out a form, they click this, they're usually going to be lower profit margins. And it usually takes a qualified team to put the whole thing together because then people are going to get into like sales training and stuff like that. And I don't teach that. So what's that called when you do that? It means you're purely transactional. It means you're having a conversation based on the property alone, most likely. That's it. I hear these conversations all the time. And remember, the property is just a symptom of what's going on with the person who owns it or their family that's affiliated with it. And our job is to figure it out. If you know the real estate is just a quantifiable number, which I'm the first to tell you, you need to know what that number is. You can go over to X Leads and you can get those numbers. They're all right in there. While you're talking to the customer, you can do it on your computer. You can do it on your phone. It doesn't matter. And these are real numbers. And in X Leads, it will give you the actual wholesale number that you should target. Does it know exactly? No, nobody does. Just like when we skip trace, it's like, it's about a 70, maybe 72% strike rate because data is data. So I'm not going to teach you to do this right here, be a transactional wholesaler. I don't do it. Like, I'm not good at it. If it comes down to bidding on price and just like trying to undercut the conditions, and I just don't do it because I know I will never win on price alone. Never. I don't want to. In fact, if you win on price alone as a wholesaler, you're most likely not doing wholesaling. You're doing some type of real estate investing. But the reality is, I talk about wholesaling so many times, people try to bring in all the other strategies in real estate investing, and I've done them all. My favorite's always going to be wholesaling. It is the least amount of risk with the highest amount of reward, but you're going to have to work. So if you want to do transactional, go on MLS. If money's not an object, go to pay per leads. Make sure you get full disclosure on the cost of everything. And if you can afford it and you have the skill sets and you're making money doing it, I bless you. How are you going to scale it? I don't know. I don't follow that one. So I don't do transactional. I'm going to teach you how to connect with the seller by simply doing this word right here. Now, I'm not a rapper. It's rapport. You have to connect with them. Rapport is just the ability to connect with people. And if you don't understand how to do this and you want to be a wholesaler, you're going to have to overcome this because you're never going to win alone on price. So we're going to go out and we're going to find motivated sellers that need to sell their house. We're going to qualify them. So the first thing you do is every time when I'm talking to a seller is people try to complicate how they talk to people. It's simple. They already know you're reaching out to them, or if you're trying to connect with them to find out if they're the owner of the property, just start talking about the property. Why? Because if I go into a personal conversation right off the bat and I don't know you, like if I didn't know you and I said, "Hey, listen, how's your mom doing today? Did your sisters did they feel good today?" They're gonna be like, "What are you talking? You don't even know my family." And that's where you have to start building. So the first thing I'm gonna do is talk about what is the one common thing I have with the seller. I'm looking to buy. Hopefully, they're looking to sell. Let's talk about the property. Call this the warm up of rapport. This is how it works. This is how you start. Now, a lot of you guys are going to have scripts at this point. I'm okay starting out with scripts. Everybody needs to have a plan on where they're going to go in. And like I use scripts all the time when I get started, but you're going to have to go further than a script. So let me give you just some pointers on how you can connect people and help your confidence while you're talking to these sellers. So the first thing you do, once you get past they own the property and there's interest there, just start talking about the property. And remember, they need to do the talking, not you. Well, Rick wanted to do. If you keep asking yes and no answers, there's no way to get data back from people. You'll get quantifiable data, but remember, we're looking for people's responses. Listen, if you want to be transactional, I don't teach that. And some people are very successful transactional. I just don't teach that method. They're lower profits. To me, they're a headache. And most of them, you're not going to be able to do the wholesaling method of contracting the property and selling your contract. In fact, I'm just telling you, the more transactional you are, the more they're going to like, the more it is about the actual property. And that's why we have realtors, and God bless them. I'm so happy they do that. Just not my cup of tea, and I don't want to do that. So the hits right here on the screen: condition, occupancy. Do you have a tenant in there? Is it homeowner occupied, meaning does the homeowner live there? Is the property vacant? What's going on with it? Is it home they own seasonably? Is it vacant because the tenant got kicked out? You just start with the initial thing. So let me give you an example. If you're talking to the seller, you go, "Tell me a little bit about the property." They go, "Well, I haven't been there in a few months and there's nobody in there." They're telling you it's vacant. That's it. The vacant is a box I can check off and it follows up in your CRM and X leads. That's fine. Now you've got to find out, why is it vacant? What's going on with the property? And what you're trying to do is just get to how this happened. You're trying to get to the seller's story. And the more you can honor the seller's story and the more you can draw out what's going on, you can gather information to solve the seller's problem. If you can't solve the problem, you can't wholesale. All we do is solve problems. So many people are like, "Oh, don't we sell them and do stuff like that?" No, we don't. We just guide them and we walk them through it. And you've got to understand that. So, okay, I see you guys talking on there. So once we get in and get this is where rapport starts and you start getting them to talk. Now, the rule of thumb is 80-20. It sounds good in theory. It's not as easy as it sounds in person when you do it. Some of you have a tendency to talk more than others, and some of you don't like to talk at all. You're going to have to strike a balance. The 20% is you, if you're wondering, and the 20% should be part of your script that churn in the conversations. We'll talk about that. They should be very directed questions on an open-ended conversation. If you ask yes, no questions, nobody ever elaborates and you'll never get to know them and figure them out. Guys, what I'm telling you is you need to get the data from the property. Is it vacant? What are the rents? What are the repairs? What's the condition of it? But you need to get the seller's story. And the only way you're going to do it is you got to warm up the conversation. This is what we call building rapport. It's that simple. I want you to think about this. When you talk to your friends, are you looking down on a script and asking like yes, no, or data point questions? No, you're having a conversation. It flows back and forth, sometimes good, sometimes bad. This is humans. And the more you can turn your interaction with sellers into a human conversation, the better you're going to do. I know that sounds weird. And the reality is a lot of you get frightened and you get scared because you're technically talking to strangers. Guess what? Here's how you fix that. You become confident in yourself on your ability to connect with other people. How do you do it? A ton of practice. I can't tell you enough how much practice you need doing this. Use the mirror, use your dad, use your mom, your sister, your aunt. Come on one of our live streams. Let's do a role play, whatever we have to do to get it done. But you got to do your part. You can't just show up at a motivated seller's house and just wing it. It's probably going to go horribly wrong. Ask me how I know. I winged it in the beginning. It was terrible. I didn't get a deal for my first really 2.5, 3 months doing this because I was horrified. I was scared to death. So I know exactly what you're feeling. So the 80-20 rule is you get the seller talking 80% because the more information that comes out of their mouth, the more data you have to evaluate and help solve the seller's problem. You're the 20%. If you find yourself speaking half and half, you're trying to win the conversation. And if you want to win and get the wholesale deal, you have to try to stick with an 80-20. Now, listen, it's a guideline, guys. So many people take exactly what I say and they go, I tried to do this. It's like a 70% rule. You got to put common sense to stuff. But if you're talking more than the seller, take the hint and fix it sooner than later, because nobody likes someone who talks too much, especially when they're looking for help. Here's the reality, guys. One of the biggest things you got to understand is one of the greatest assets for humans, the greatest thing you can do for your friends, your families, and motivated sellers, you ready? Is listen. Our world is so short of people who will listen. And when I say listen, it means sit down and listen to what they're saying and shut up and stop thinking about exactly what you're about to say. Because the minute you can think about what you're going to say, you're probably not engaged in listening, and they know it. So 80-20, it works. God gave us 2 ears, 1 mouth. Take the hint. Come on. We're going to keep moving here because I want to get on and talking to you guys. Actually, let me go ahead and put in the invite while I do this, because when I'm done, I want to get people in queue and we'll get this going. So I'm going to go ahead and put this in the comments. And you guys want to jump on, anybody wants to do a role play or anything like that, let's do it. Okay, it's on there. And I will come back and answer the question. So keep putting them in there. I love the interaction on it. So the 80-20 rule. So now, once I get that property data, it's a 3-2, it's vacant, yada, yada, because it's not threatening when you ask the seller that. It's not personal. They don't really care. And listen to the clues they tell you. So the next part is, now we're going into what I call a deeper qualify. So initially, when you underwrite any wholesale deal, you're just trying to underwrite the motivation first. Because I got to tell you, if there's no motivation, they usually do not work out very well. How do I know this? I just know this. Trust me on this. So I'm going to put that up there. There's my ADHD kicking in. So now we go in the full qualify. Well, Rick, I thought I already qualified them. No. For the most part, you've qualified their motivation. Now, a full qualification basically is making sure everything adds up and it makes sense. And this is where you're going to get the seller to open up on, what is the underlying problem. Houses don't sit vacant on purpose. We all know that. I've got several vacant houses. Nothing I'm crazy about. It's either a bad renter, an Airbnb that you're having challenges with, or a house maybe you have on the market. There's always a story behind a vacant house. If you only get vacant house, that's not enough data to solve and meet the needs as a wholesaler to solve the seller's problem. And we have to understand that. So we're simply going to go into MCTP. If you don't know what MCTP is, I'm going to put it. Oh, I lost it. Wait. I'm going to put it on the bottom so it doesn't annoy, so I don't have to look at it the whole time. MCTP, if you go to freewholesaling.com, we go into detail what it is. So it's motivation, condition, timeline, and price. Did I invent this? No, I just came up with the acronym. This is common sense when it is a real estate. You can't avoid any of these. Everybody needs to know that information. And the more we know, the easier it is to solve this equation. The less you know, you're shooting from the hip and you're going to make blind offers and they're most likely going to get rejected. But we'll get to that. So if we know we're going to do that, you got to understand this statement. The more the seller speaks, the more data you gather, the easier it is to solve their problem. If you are dominating the conversation and you are not a good listener, it's usually not going to reside well with the seller. Listen, the people we're seeking out already have problems. And the number one thing they're going to judge you on is if you were a good listener or not. You can't just like, they give you the information, you just start spitting back. Well, you take this. Oh, that sounds terrible. It takes a lot more. Can you do that? You can. It will not work on the techniques I'm teaching you on getting out your own motivated seller leads. You can use it in other paid strategies, but like you're burning through a lot of cash, because if you add up the cost of those, is it really worth it? So we have to understand, the more information, the more I can gather and solve someone's problem, because I got more things I can pick from. Like for instance, is they go, listen, if I could get this house sold in the next month or two and get to West Virginia to be with my sister for the holidays, that's what I want. And the minute they say that, I burn it in my brain. I also put it in my CRM and I use that as an anchor point. My job is to figure out how to accomplish that. Now, I know I'm going to have to get through the price and we're going to have to go through the numbers on it, but I'm always going to focus on the seller's end goal. And if you guys would do that, you would make a lot more progress with it. Because a lot of you guys think the goal is just to sell the house. It is. But remember, the house is just the quantifiable math part. In the end, they're going to feel better. She's going to be with her sister. They're going to celebrate the holidays just like most of you guys are tomorrow, the next day. And that's how wholesalers solve problems, but you can't do it without the information. So if we understand that, so there's two different ways to do it. I have a lot of virtual wholesalers, and you have a few more challenges because you can't see the person. Now, the advantages you have, you can go anywhere you want in the country and pick whatever what market you want. That is a huge plus. And so to me, they both kind of offset each other. So let's quickly talk about the person that's going to be in person. And by the way, this is how I started out. I did in person. I had to eventually learn how to do it virtual. Honestly, I was shocked when I heard virtual because I'm an old school wholesaler. And actually, the first state I ever started was in Ohio. Why? Honestly, I don't even know why I picked it, but it worked. And I was just as scared as a lot of you guys are today to do it. Why? I couldn't see the property. I couldn't see the seller. And I learned quickly I had to listen, like hyper focus. Now, ADHD can allow you to close everything out and listen to someone's tonality. I'm really good at it. I've taught my son these skill sets. I'm here to tell you, if you're in virtual, you have to be really good at listening and hyper focus. Why? I can't see the visual signs. I get it. You do a Zoom or something like that, FaceTime, it's different. But the reality is I have to listen to the speed of your tone, the inflection in your tone, the softness, the loudness, the size, the mums, the hums, and you can tell if you're engaging with someone. In person, I'm going to be honest with you, it's not that hard. People are just spitting out clues left and right when you meet with them. And why? I had no idea when I first wholesaling, I had no idea how much people really communicated non-verbally. And if you don't believe me, I want you to take, when you go see your friends and family, and just look at how people communicate. Look when they look you in the eye. Look when they look away. Look when they're slouched over. Listen when they're excited, when they're angry. And this is the clues you need to take when doing it. Now, when going in person, we have to use what we call in-house clues. So you're new to wholesaling. I get it. You don't know how to read people yet. But trust me, if you stay in this process in wholesaling, you'll actually figure this out through repetition. But in the beginning, you're not going to do it. So Rick, how do I connect with someone that I don't really know? Let me show you how to do it in person, and then we'll talk a little bit about virtual. Number one, look around for family photos. I've never been in someone's house that they don't have a family photo. If it's a rental house, it's going to be about the renters. It's going to be about the renter's family, but we're talking about a personal seller's house. So family photos, sports teams, pets. My God, people are just so hooked on their pets. I mean, I love my dog to death, I got pictures of my dog like sitting on the counter. It's kind of weird, but you guys know like your dog is like basically like the family. So why not use the things that are in front of you? People get someone talking about their sports teams, they won't shut up. And this is one of the key pieces of information I use to connect with people. Like, Rick, how do I do it over the phone? Just ask, take clues. Hey, I'm going over to the Steelers game tomorrow. Oh, are you a Pittsburgh Steelers fan? Yeah. And then they might go on 10 minutes about football. That's good. You might be thinking, oh my gosh, I'm getting off base. No, if they like you enough to share their most inner passion, like people's sports team are like really tight on it. I mean, I used to be really big on sports teams. To me, honestly, I don't care. You know who my teams are. They're never very good. But when I was younger, it was everything to me. And if somebody would hear me out about a sports team, like it felt special to give them that information. So if you understand that their pets, their family, their hobbies, some sometimes it's religion, sometimes they're politics. I'm not scared. I'll talk to anybody because everybody wants to tell you a story. So look for visual clues, and that's the easy part of how you connect with them. So as you walk in a house, I'll give you a cheat sheet on how to do it. I look at the floors, I look at the ceiling, and I do a 360 all the way around. I mostly want to look at the kitchen because I can pretty much grade what the rest of the house is going to look at. If you want step two, go to the master bathroom. Those two are going to be indicative of how 90% of the rest of the house is going to be. Don't believe me? Try it out. And while I do that, it's hard in the beginning. I get it. But you look, because a lot of times the ceiling, why would I look at the ceiling? I'm looking for stains, I'm looking for leaks, and I'm looking for dirt on the ceiling. Now remember, the seller doesn't know the condition of their house. And let's face it, we're not there to judge them why it's there. And the last thing you want to do is start calling sellers out. There's nothing worse when a wholesaler starts lecturing a seller, telling them everything that's wrong with their house and basically saying, I can only give you an offer because of this, this, and this. Build rapport first. And our job's not to go in and lecture a seller. It's to try to help the seller. And sometimes you can't hit them with some of the obvious truths. When you walk in a dirty house, honestly, I'd rather buy a cleaner house because they're just easier to sell. But a lot of times a dirty rundown house, you get better opportunities for discounts. But I think a lot of wholesalers misunderstand that because you're going to get you're going to make a lower sticking price as a wholesaler, but you're also going to have a lower resale price. So like, I'd rather just have a cleaner house. I've been eaten alive by fleas walking in houses, but just use the clues around you and then go into it. And here's the one technique that God knows it's been used for hundreds of years, and honestly, probably thousands of years back to the Romans, well back before them. It is a simple technique. It survives in the human race and the entire animal kingdom, too. We are no different. We're basically all animals when it comes down to it. It's mirroring. And what's mirroring? It's when you talk to your sellers and you match their tonality, you match their energy, you match everything. So if you're a loud, brash, like obnoxious person and you have a soft little lady on the phone, you can't like if your ego's bigger than what the wholesale deal is, it's not going to work. So you have to connect. Why? Here's why mirroring works. It's just the truth. You can actually dominate somebody on a phone conversation just by dictating the pace. It's not always good because you might turn them off so bad. But try it. When someone talks to you slow, if you slow down, that's mirroring them. They will subconsciously connect to it like, hey, this person's a lot like me. I like them. Who doesn't want to do business with someone you like? Mirroring works very well. It's tried and true. It works in every business. This is not particular wholesaling to real estate. And you have to. Why? Because if you don't do this, you can piss people off. You can upset them just by your tone. Some of us are loud and proud, and that's fine. But when it comes to this environment, you've spent all this time, all this money, you've done all this training. Mirror people. It's simple. And I'm always telling you, and like a mirroring, they're like, well, how do I do it virtually? I'm like here to tell you, virtually, it's even more important because they can't see your gestures. The word smiling and dialing is there for a reason. If you don't smile, people know it. I can tell instantly when people aren't smiling and I'm talking to them on the phone. Why? You can just hear it. Like a smile just invokes energy and excitement. And it's like, well, will you take this offer? There's transactional as opposed to, hey, Mr. Seller, let's talk about an offer that'll work for you. The idea is it the same thing? Technically, yes, but your tone is everything. Listen, if you have kids, you understand this. You ever have a kid like not getting something, especially when they're young, under 10? What's their immediate reaction? A lot of them will throw temper tantrums, and the tone goes, they start shaking and screaming, and hell, I did it. They're doing it to get you to switch back to their side. They are doing it to manipulate you. And it's the truth. Some parents are better at it than others. But the reality is everything's about tonality. So if you understand mirroring, nobody even talks about it in wholesaling anymore. Like, this is one of the biggest things. Here's a hint. I walk in someone's house, I meet with them. When I come down to the final negotiation, if they're sitting at the kitchen table, guess what I do? I sit. If they're standing, I stand. If they want to go outside, we go outside. There's something about people that want to do business with people that are similar to them. Now, I'm not telling you to dye your hair. I'm not telling you to change your political or your religious views. I'm just telling you, mirror the person. And mirroring is just a code word for energy. Match the energy. If you're on the phone, it's even more important. Do you see how I pick up my words and I slow them down? That's not a sales technique. That's just human nature. I have some friends that talk so fast. They get me talking so fast, and now they're friends, you kind of like lose it. But like when I'm in wholesale world, like the minute right off the bat, like this is common in a lot of leads. Hey, Rick, what's the price? What's the price? I'm not answering that. Why? Because I'm not a transactional wholesaler. Transactional wholesaler will immediately go in and usually try to make some low offer to try to gain control of the seller to get their attention. Yes. Do I do lowball, go for no offers? I do. Why? Because it's needed, period. Everybody does it. Just most people won't admit it. No wholesaler goes in and says, I want to pay retail for a property. Most wholesalers don't even want to pay like just a slight discount. We are seeking properties with problems. That's why I like doing government lists because we know there's a problem. Can we connect with that seller? We have to find out. So, mirroring. Now, in the beginning, you're going to start with scripts. I'm okay with that. In fact, at freewholesaling.com below, we give you the scripts. But the scripts are nothing more than a guideline, kind of a roadmap of where you need to go. And the problem is why I like using things like MCTP, so you don't screw it up. So if someone goes straight to price, and once I redirect them like, Mr. Seller, do you mind if I ask you a few questions so I can get you the best offer possible? What I'm going to do is asking permission just to ask questions, because if it's just price, let's click a button. Let's just go to Zillow. Let's just go to Open Door and call it a day. I'm not going to win on price alone. And I'm not, and the minute you answer that price question, you're completely discredited. Why? Because you might as well go take a number 2 off the McDonald's order menu. That's just how it works. So once I redirect, so he did price. So I took P off there. Now I'm going to go back to the condition of the house. Once it does that, I talk to him about the time frame. They might jump around, but if I have 4 qualifying questions, when they answer this one, I can go, okay, I just got the MCT left. Now, if you have a script, it can get overwhelming. You're like, oh my gosh, you didn't answer it in order. You ever have that person that calls you on the phone? It just drives you nuts. Now, the whole goal here is to basically convert your scripts to conversations, period. And what's a conversation? Think about how you talk to your friends and family. Think about how I'm talking to you now. It's a conversation. Conversations are what humans are used to. Conversations are what humans are used to. Without it, it just does not work. So think about how you have conversations with your friends, your family. Careful with family there, especially this time of year. But if you're like a robot, like nobody wants to do business with you. Nobody wants to even spend time with you because they don't understand. Just like the person who does nothing but complain all day. Oh my God, everything's against me today. Oh my God, I do this. Oh my God, so and so did this. You believe they did that? You have zero control what other people say, do, or speak about you. So why give it any energy? In fact, you got to stay away from people like that, period. But who's in control of that? You are. You have to understand that. So, conversations to script. I'm okay starting with scripts. Start adding conversations in your script. And as you practice, you will be rewarded for it. But if you don't practice, you're going to have so many ums, buts. You're going to be frozen in the script. I know I've been there. I know a lot of you are still there. And I'm telling you, just use your script as an outline and engage a conversation. Think of the script as like a checkbox. But remember, if they jump down the question like number 7 on your script, like don't go, oh my God, it's all out of order. I can't make this work. What am I going to do? No. Just like, okay, did that one. Let's just jump back up here. That's why I like acronyms. They're simple. The simpler you make your wholesaling, the better it's going to be. Remember, I'm talking about you deriving your own wholesale leads for motivated sellers. Okay, this is not going to work with real estate agents. It's good theory, but I don't practice it. So I'm not going to teach you how to work with real estate agents because it's a whole different world. It's a whole different technique. And the reality is when you deal with real estate agents or any type of like paid lead services that's going to cost you money, it is about your level of expertise on their side. Realtors talk in completely different words, period. And then it's about the relationships you form with those people. And both those things take time. Why would I think a wholesaler is going to have success calling real estate agents cold? It's terrible. It's hard. I did it. It was brutal. Does it work? Yes. With time and experience, you can get it. But like you only get a few deals here and there. That's the truth of it. You're never going to get a ton of deals off MLS. The only exception to that really was 2010 to maybe 2011. That was the only time in my 22 years where you could go on MLS and get whatever you want. But everybody else had the same problem. So like, was it advantageous or not? I don't know. I wouldn't go on MLS right now. It's a complete waste of my time. Why? Transactional. I don't teach transactional. Let me repeat. If you try to do what I'm teaching you right now on connecting with sellers on a transactional level, like when you don't speak to the seller directly, or maybe you get it from a third party, it's usually not going to work out very well. That's how I know. Now, the last thing you got to understand is this. You have to adapt. You guys understand no two sellers are ever alike. If I thought that is, I'd give you a form script and I'd never let you deviate from it. Scripts are there so you can have confidence, so you can learn how to talk to sellers. You have to learn how to talk to sellers with scripts, churn them in the conversations, and most importantly, the single highest skill set outside of marketing as a wholesaler you have is being resourceful, meaning you're going to have to think on your feet. Stuff comes at you fast. In the beginning, you're not going to have all the answers. That's why I teach the go for no, to save you from yourself as a beginner wholesaler. Because if you have no idea how to negotiate, the one thing I can teach you very easily is how to connect and build rapport with a seller. Once you connect and have rapport and build a seller, using the go for no is just a strategy to get to the end price sooner than later. Why? Because I've been there. I've left so much money on the table on a deal. And at the end, the buyer and the seller are going to come to an agreement one way or the other. In fact, if you don't use a go for no or any type of lowballing method, you're going to get highballed, meaning they're going to try to go on the upper range. They're going to move the goalpost on you. I've had this happen to me all the time. And if you don't believe me, just go on MLS. What does every realtor does that lists a property for the most part? They overlist it because they assume they're going to get a lower offer. So remember, high ball, low ball, go for no, whatever it is. The idea is the price is always somewhere in between. That's where no matter who you are, you're going to have to negotiate. It doesn't matter if it's paid per lead, pay per click, direct mail, government list. But here's why we do this. It's the expectation. So if I have a price that's right here, say it's 200, and somebody gives me a formula and I offer like 172.1, they go, wow, that's not too far from my price. Instead of countering at like 190, I'm going to counter at 210. Goalposts move all the time. You don't believe me? If you want a lesson in this, go watch the show Pawn Shops. Great show. They're out of Vegas. And it's not that one. There's one in Detroit there. They do it too. They specialize in the go for no method. Why? Because they know everyone's asking for a lot of times an unrealistic price, and everyone's going to try to see who's going to go where. And whoever shows signs of chasing the other one, that's typically where it's going to go. And sometimes it doesn't work. The bottom line is if you build rapport, you build your own confidence by doing it, you use the go for no effort, you get a counter, and at the end, you can be best friends and you can get a deal done. If you don't do it, you're most likely going to be highballed. And that's why most of you overpay for your wholesale contracts. In fact, if you guys would stop overpaying for wholesale contracts, we wouldn't have to use the go for no method. But honestly, I always tell you, your job is help the seller get out of their own way. Sellers have problems and they don't always tell you the truth. Example, if I walk in the house, I see extension cords through the windows, which I see all the time, especially in Port St. Lucie. I see a hole in the roof. They go, no, everything's fine. But all the visual signs say otherwise. That is my example of helping the seller get out of their way, especially when there's children involved. This is where like you almost become a social worker as a wholesaler. You got to have a heart as a wholesaler and you got to help people out. Now, taking that same philosophy on the beginner wholesaler that's just getting started, or maybe they did a couple deals and they can't put it all together. The reality is the biggest problem you all tell me is you're overpaying for your properties. So the reason I put in the go for no is number one, I had to learn a lesson and I had to teach everybody that work with me is I'm going to help you get out of your own way and stop overbidding for these properties. Because are you really messing with homeowners when you overbid for a property and you got to cancel it or renegotiate? It's terrible. Nobody wants to do that. I don't care who you are in real estate or wholesaling, much less. So the idea is instead of you making ridiculous offers where you don't even know, the go for no is just a mental practice game that we use. It's the same technique most realtors use with you when they list a property and it's 25% over market. And remember, a seller is never forced to take your offer. And this should not be used with people that have disabilities, people that are elderly. And by the time, anytime someone's elderly, what's elderly? I don't know, Rick's age or older, but anybody like 62 or higher, I bring in a family member, because if they're confused and they don't know what they're doing, that's not a respectable thing to do. I'm the first to admit it. So I'll bring in a family member and then I'll have that conversation with them. And then they typically consult other family members, a lawyer. And guys, if you're going to lowball someone that doesn't know what they're doing or has a disability or an age thing, the deal is going to fall apart anyway. So you're literally just going to waste your time. And honestly, if you do that deal and you think like you're stealing, it's going to be a problem. So there is a method to my madness in what I do. But like, here's the thing is, I didn't make this stuff up. I've been doing this going on 22 years. Why? I've had a lot of hard lessons in this business. And the goal of my channel and everything I do with my son is to teach you. Does everybody agree with what I do? No, I don't want everyone to agree with me. I don't care. I know what gets results. We're talking about connecting with motivated sellers directly from your own lead sources. If you're going to go to MLS, you're going to go to the third parties or highly paid things, that's fine. But this is why a method like that would be different on it. So I want you to understand. And the last one I'm going to put up here, and then we're going to take questions. You ready? Don't forget ODN. Right? This is one like I'm hanging my hat on in 2025. You have to understand. Rick, what's ODN? It's a simple acronym to keep you in the lane of wholesaling. You ready? Off market, direct to seller that needs to sell. You hit on all three of these. These are primarily where the best wholesaling deals come from. Does everybody qualify this? No, I'm the first to admit it. But I'm just telling you, if you had to give me a perfect game plan to get the best wholesaling deal with the greatest profit and the greatest ease to get it done, ODN, off market, direct to seller, someone that needs to sell. So that's it. So a couple announcements here real quick.